So Cliff Richard is going to be appearing in court today, giving evidence in the High Court in his case against the BBC. He's suing the BBC after his name was revealed by them after his home was raided back in 2014. We'll all remember that footage over his home in Sunningdale in Berkshire, when it was alleged he'd sexually assaulted an underage boy. Helicopters were rented by the BBC, hired, whatever you do, commissioned by the BBC at huge expense. So they watched this raid by the police take place, bearing in mind that Cliff Richard had not been arrested and was never arrested or even charged with any of these allegations against him, and yet his name was dragged through the mud. Now he is suing for the profound and long-lasting damage to his reputation and his career, and wants substantial compensation, including hundreds of thousands in legal costs, PR fees, a book that had to be shelved, and all his lost income and reputational damage. I say good for him. I'm asking you, though, to tweet me to tell me what you think the appropriate time is for someone to be named and identified by the police if they're being accused of a sexual crime, whether it's at arrest, whether it's at charge, or when they go to court, or when they're convicted. Well, one man who has dealt with this himself in the past is Nigel Evans. He's Tory MP for Ribble Valley, a talk radio regular, and of course was former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, a job he had to leave after he faced a number of allegations of sexual assault and rape. He's now campaigning to change the law to protect the anonymity of those accused after he was, of course, acquitted of all charges. Nigel Evans, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning
How are you?
to you. Very well indeed. Of course, you went through a horrific time where we spoke, I think, a number of times while you were facing the charges. You had to step down as Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. Your name was all over the papers with these allegations against you. When, of course, the case came to court, the jury found you innocent on all charges. But the damage had been done to your reputation. You've since been campaigning to change the law. And of course, people like Sir Cliff Richard are equally victims in this.
Yeah, himself, Paul Gambaccini, a lot of others, Julia, and I'm like you, three cheers to Sir Cliff Richard for taking the BBC to the High Court. It's about time Tony Hall got an absolute grip of that organisation. The arrogance that pours out from them to say that it was in the public interest to hire a helicopter and show live on BBC the raiding of his home in Berkshire is an absolute disgrace. And quite frankly, they should come to an agreement and work out what damages they ought to be paying Sir Cliff. Whatever they pay him, it's not going to be enough, Julia, to bring back the reputational damage that was done during that period of time. Well, it's going to take Cliff a long time to get over that ordeal.
Well, indeed. I have to say, I don't understand why the BBC is fighting this. Sir Cliff Richard already made a settlement with the police involved. But I would say that it's the police that have... in South Yorkshire Police, who are at fault here. They say, of course, they never confirmed the name of Sir Cliff Richard. But of course, you know, if you give the information about the raid to the apparently rather pushy BBC reporter, I would say the BBC reporter had been doing his job and getting the story. But the reality is, you know, there are very strict rules about what we can and cannot write about people in cases of court cases and reporting of anything that's sub judice. And if there was a simple rule that people were not allowed to be named until they were at the very least arrested, which Sir Cliff Richard wasn't even arrested. He didn't know anything about even the claims against him. He was abroad in Portugal when this raid on his home happened. I just find it extraordinary that there can be a raid in this scenario without him even knowing anything about it and knowing anything about his charges. But it does seem to me that it's the police who are more at fault than the BBC.
Well, I think they're both culpable because they both worked hand in glove. As you say, there was a pushy journalist who managed to get the information sufficient for them to hire a helicopter and fly it over Sir Cliff Richard's house at the time that the raid was there. You know, that's not by chance. That happened as planned. And of course, the South Yorkshire Police have paid a sum of money, we believe now in the region of £400,000 plus some legal costs as well. So,
bearing in mind this is all taxpayers' money, every penny involved in this court case is taxpayers' money that could be spent on something better.
Yep. And the BBC also taxpayers' money because, of course, we have no choice. You've got a TV, then you've got to pay the licence fee. And it just shows the arrogance. I mean, Tony Hall can't even get the gender pay battle right. And when I sat on the committee that dealt with the BBC, the Culture, Media and Sport Committee, I was pressing hard then for the salaries of the top stars, so-called talent, to be made public. And I was told, no, it shouldn't happen, because if it did become public, it would force up the salaries of those working for the BBC. And what's happened? They've finally been forced to reveal the salaries, and now that's had a downward pressure on salaries.
Well,
so
they've been named and shamed, Nigel. But coming back to the matter in hand, you're campaigning to protect the anonymity of those accused of sexual assault. How long should people remain anonymous? Because there have been cases the police have said, look, we've seen the case of Rolf Harris, for instance, the number of women who come forward after the first charges are brought and made public and say, oh, look, this happened to me. Now, of course, there are always risks about copycats and people making false claims. But nevertheless, a lot of the times cases can't come forward because victims feel they won't be believed. But when there are a few dozen of them, for instance, they feel they've got a better chance of being believed by a jury and getting the conviction. So there are sometimes occasions when people do need to be named by the police before the cases come to court. When do you think that should happen?
Well, I'm campaigning for anonymity until charge. And of course, there should be the opportunity for the police to go to a judge and provide evidence that says exactly what you just said. In exceptional circumstances, then the name of the person should be revealed. I mean, I've met Cliff. Since all charges, they were dropped. He was never charged.
Yeah, he was never even arrested. This is the thing. He wasn't even arrested.
As I understand it, Julia, he had to ask the South Yorkshire police to interview him. So that's how far off they were. So I believe anonymity till charge at least. And of course, you don't need 20 people making accusations against an individual. You only need one. And it only needs to be sufficiently strong that it will get through a court, and then that person will be charged. And so then when that person is charged, then that would be made public. But not until then. And I think that there's a lot of people, not just celebrities, there are a lot of other people out there whose lives have been turned upside down, that they've lost their jobs, that they've had depression after going through a huge investigation, and then they're never charged. And so we do need a change in the law to give a little bit of balance to ensure that those who are wrongfully accused get some sort of protection.
And of course, because we know, of course, in these particular cases, when it involves a sex crime, there is just a very different perception in the public. The whole no smoke without fire rumours that often seem to happen. It's so different from any other crime. Nigel Evans, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Tory MP for Ribble Valley, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, who himself has experienced being falsely accused of a crime he did not commit.